What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today we got a good topic. We are going to be talking about the 5 enemies of spiritual transformation. So let's get into it. I first want to thank everybody who commented on our last 2 videos. I want you to keep that same energy, so drop a comment, like this video. I was also told that you could hype up the video. Do all of that for me, all right? Greatly appreciated. So getting into this topic, we got Mercury and Mars both in the sign of Scorpio right now. And as I grow as an astrologer, every year these signs take on different meaning to me. I get to understand them more. Always remember, Gemini Brown always wants you to differentiate the difference between personality traits and the function of the sign. They are intertwined, but you'll really want to get an understanding of why Scorpios are considered sometimes vindictive or secretive, right? You want to know why. So with that said, Scorpio is a sign of psychology, your inner psychology, and it's also considered the sign of transformation. Scorpio is where we can self-analyze ourselves. And myself as a Virgo rising with Scorpio in the 3rd house, I love having this ability because I think the ability to self-analyze is the first step to becoming self-aware. But then, of course, you have to act on what it is that you're analyzing and what needs to be fixed. Now, once you're aware of something on an internal level, you kind of have 2 choices. You can remain complacent within that energy or that particular habit or whatever that thing is, or you can transmute it, which ultimately leads to a transformation. Now, this segues us into the first thing that kills the ability to spiritually transform. And that is self-pity, feeling like a victim. So going back to me being a Virgo rising, I'm not sure if it's just that, or maybe it's just me as an old soul. But one thing that I'm aware of and I'm very grateful for is that it's hard for me to feel bad for myself, I guess, for too long. Because all humans, if we think about something, if we focus on a problem like, oh, why isn't it that way? We're naturally going to feel a way about it. But what you want to do, self-pity creates a mental loop. And I've seen this. I want you guys to be really aware of this. I just can only speak of this from my perspective. But I've seen so many people, man and woman, get broken by a particular relationship that sends them into a cycle of self-pity. And if it lasts long enough, that becomes a habit. You actually never really get over it. I think we all may know people like this. And to me, that's some of the saddest things to see on the spiritual journey. You meet someone who was supposed to be a lesson, and that turns into a karmic tie and loop that you get stuck in. So I'm letting you know, self-pity is one of the biggest enemies of self-transformation because it keeps you stuck replaying the same story. If you die with these stories, if you die with those attachments or that self-pity, it carries over into the next life. More than likely, you'll be born with someone with a Saturn moon aspect. Okay? Trust me, I've seen so much. And I'm not just talking out here. I'm talking about astrally. I've seen so much. So I'm communicating to you. Refrain from too much self-pity. Do not see yourself as a victim, particularly in this day and age where we have the access to so much information that can lead to self-help. And before I move on to the next one, I would just say, like, in the time away that I've been taking from the internet, it's just really good not to see so many people forcing self-help advice down your throat. On a weird level, I think for some of us, constantly being told you need to do this, you need to do that, can create an inner rebelliousness against what you need to do. The second enemy to self-transformation is entitlement. But I want to let you guys know, I believe everyone's Venus sign has a layer of entitlement to it. Naturally, our sun signs as well, but not everyone would necessarily be fully developed in their sun. But if you are developed in your sun sign, you may feel entitled in certain ways. But Venus is very interesting when it comes to entitlement, because Venus is seeking pleasure. Venus wants to do what it loves. And naturally, Venus doesn't like hard things. So depending on where your Venus is placed and how it is placed, you may naturally feel like you deserve things rather than having to work for them. Or you may unconsciously shy away from doing the things that you need to do in order to manifest or attract because you feel entitled. When it comes to positions for this Venus, the entitlement greatly increases when Venus ends up in the second or the eighth house. The second house being its own house and domain, one may feel entitled to particular things based on their own self-esteem or set of values or how they were raised. So naturally, if you get someone with Venus in the second house who comes from a well-off family and they've always been given things, that naturally is a value that has been learned. That like, oh, I received by just being me. Then in the eighth house, we may have someone who feels entitled to intimacy or certain layers of depth. It gets tricky there. But the best thing I could say to you is like, don't be too pushy, right? Don't be too pushy in regards to intimacy. Intimacy is a natural thing that develops between others. Just to give an example, you may have someone who feels entitled to particular types of intimacy, i.e. sex. So they may believe that like, yeah, what's the problem? We all should participate in BDSM, right? That's a little bit much, but you catch my drift. They may not realize how their entitlement plays out in regards to others. So pay attention to your Venus. When it comes to signs that feel entitled, naturally, I'm going to go with the fire signs because the fire signs are self-oriented. Now, entitlement leads to our next one, which is lack of self-discipline. And I feel like the best way to channel discipline or develop self-discipline is to really look at it this way. Self-discipline is an extension of self-love. Whatever you do for yourself to make yourself better. And sometimes that means restricting self from things that are not healthy or helpful. This is discipline and this is self-love in motion. It's a commitment towards yourself and the reason behind why you're doing what you're doing. So when we are unwilling to be disciplined or maybe unable to feel discipline, it can be because on a deep level, you feel entitled within that area. Now, I want to take this time and just speak from my perspective on how I see things, looking at things psychologically. I feel like the nature of the internet can really lead someone to unconsciously develop entitlement. Let's say you see someone out there with a wonderful relationship and you think, I look better than this person. I am better than this person. Now, the lack of self-discipline can occur where it's like, yeah, if they were able to get that kind of relationship by being them, I should be able to get this type of relationship by just being me. And then a person might fail to develop the qualities needed to attract what they need to attract. So I'm a man. And there are things that I got to do as a man that a woman doesn't have to do in order to attract what she may want to attract. The more you can understand the need for self-discipline, the more you can negate feelings of entitlement. But I really do believe like the way the world is set up with social media and us being on top of each other, it can unconsciously make others feel entitled. But it goes back to self-awareness. You gotta be aware of self and know what is needed to be done in order to get the results needed. And that's kind of the advantage of being aware of these spiritual sciences like astrology. So our next enemy of self-transformation is complacency. Now, complacency is a very interesting one because I think at face value, most people would just chalk it off as laziness. But I want to let you know a couple different factors that go into it. You know, here in astrology, we always look back at the upbringing, the conditioning, because on a psychological level, that's setting your subconscious patterning. So if a person is raised in an environment where progress or ambition isn't championed, they can naturally develop subconscious patterns of taking it easy. Now, these type of people may accomplish something in life, but the thing that happens is like when they accomplish something, they take their foot off the gas, or rather, they kind of get lost. And that leads to the next part of why a person becomes complacent. They lack vision for themselves. And one of the reasons could be like they weren't given vision in childhood or placed in environments to really develop that vision. The next part is going to be self-confidence. And self-confidence can stem from the environment, or if you're born with like Neptune squares to your sun, you may struggle with just feeling confident. So the ability to grow starts with your inner belief that like, I can make this happen. When we don't believe in ourselves, we're willing to like play it safe or just go with the flow, which can lead to complacency. Our last enemy of self-transformation is giving up. And if you take all the other qualities we listed, you can kind of see how this plays into the fold of the other ones. Because if you are complacent, if you lack discipline, if you feel entitled, you will easily give up on things. And as someone on their journey who feels rather successful within themselves, I take great pride in knowing I never quit on anything. I may evaluate something and dealing with astrology, understand that like, okay, this may not be the particular season for this particular endeavor. But quitting is a lot like I'm taking my ball and going home. And when you quit one thing and no one like checks you on, it's easy to quit, essentially. So when you quit one thing, life will let you get away with it. The key is just to not become a quitter, to develop the habit of not quitting. But this is why you don't want to quit things in the first place, because if something is challenging and you prove to yourself that you can do it, the next time a challenge arises, it's like, I know what this is. I got this. And take it as someone who's done a lot of creative things, particularly written books. And I'm very proud that I wrote my books before the AI boom, because I honestly, I don't look at AI in the writing sense that most average humans do. AI is a terrible writer, but I digress. Once I finished my first book, it was this feeling like I climbed a mountain. And when I had an idea for the next book, I literally said to myself, okay, I can do that, because I knew how to. So all in all, quitting is what you don't want to do. Other qualities will come about, but if you self-analyze and become aware enough, you can overcome them. But quitting is something that can become a habit, all right? So I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you need a reading, check my website, GeminiBrown.com. Check out my books, Astrology of the Matrix and others, the Venus Codes, and drop a comment below. Till next time,